Hello, everybody, and thank you for joining us for this Friday's episode of Trade the Chain. It's November 27th, and I hope everybody had a great Turkey Day yesterday, or at least our U.S. viewers, enjoying a quiet holiday weekend. Joined here today by my co-host Ryan Gorman, CJ, our crypto analyst from MarketRebellion.com. Monty has off today, and myself. So a lot to talk about. I know we came to you guys with a midweek episode today. It was the market was booming. Now we've had a little bit of a correction, so we want to jump in and discuss that. We'll go to the big boards. Then our hot or not list. We got quite a few evenly dispersed. Our hot list is going to be Stellar, XLM, Ripple, XRP, and Verge, XVG. Our not list, Ocean, Litecoin, LTC, and Uniswap, Uni. For the not list, it'll be interesting because, everything was in play midweek. Now it's not. Things are mixed up. And then Ryan will come to us with some really interesting news. It'll be about Biden's appointing Janet Yellen to the Fed and what kind of impact that's going to have for the crypto community as a whole. But CJ, let's just jump into the big boards because I know what everybody's asking. What's going on and what can we expect in the short term with this pullback?
Yeah, so let's just go through a brief recap before we talk about futuristic price action. So going back to last week, we had this type of hyperwave model calculated for about 22 to 23K. I thought we were going to have one more leg up of about 10 to 15% bullish price action before further pullback below those current levels. As you can see, this chart was drawn Wednesday or earlier in the week, and I felt we were going to pull back to levels before or below our current price. I was wrong. This model was wrong. So the moment it gets negated and we go below this purple phase 3, that means it's over and the model is done for, and we're no longer going to test 22K in the short term. I think that once you break these upward sloping trend lines in the model, you just have to drop the model. It wasn't right. Go with what the market is telling me to do and reverse the position. And so
you did have two outcomes to the model. You did have the extra leg up that was either going to take us up to the 22 mark range, or we were going to have the immediate correction downside to almost to about where we're sitting right now.
Yeah, and that's pretty characteristic of these parabolic runs. It's either they can continue or they just completely drop off because there's very little support that we ever really made going from 12 to all the way to nearly 20K. I mean, what did we go to? About 19.2 on the high. But now what we're seeing and what we have to ultimately deal with is before I can find a good dip buying opportunity, I want to see Bitcoin hit some levels and find support. And the way in which I kind of approach that is by using the fib retracement. Since these are levels that we haven't really been previously and haven't spent a lot of time at, we've never really hovered or consolidated around 16 or 15K historically. So it's difficult to find resistance and support levels when going back in history. But when we just go from a straight up Fibonacci retracement, we can see when we extrapolate the move, we see that the most critical level is this 0.618. That is the golden ratio. And it's coming up at about 13,600. I think that level's a little below where we'll ultimately end up going, but I think we will retest this 0.382 level. For those who may not be familiar with the fib or the Fibonacci retracement, in my opinion, personally, the most important levels here are the 382 and the 618. The 5 is more of a neutral level, but these are where I look for buying opportunities and potentially where we're going to find ultimate support for this trend before testing higher. I feel like this shouldn't necessarily come as a surprise. We were just rewarded with amazing bullish price action over the past few weeks. And we're going to get, probably 3 or 4 more of these 20% corrections in, the midst of the next year throughout this bull run. So we're going to have to strap on and just be aware of it going forward.
I think what's important here is that a lot of traders who may be new to crypto or new to trading in general, especially the retail side, they might not understand that these types of pullbacks and corrections are normal and indicative of a healthy, functioning market, right? So having this pullback after a record run up is just another step along the upward trajectory of the markets, correct?
Yes, yes. Like Alex mentioned earlier,
Yeah.
this was after we go up so quickly, so parabolically, it becomes more and more likely that we're going to see a binary outcome, whether we can continue that parabolic run or the trend just deflates and sells off very hard, which is what we obviously just saw.
So after OKX re-enabled withdrawals, there was an incredible amount of Bitcoin, I think 26,000 Bitcoin or something to that effect, taken out of that exchange. What effect do you think that had on this correction? Do you think it, exasperated it to a degree, or do you think that this is all just part of one general profit-taking move downward before we start an eventual recovery back up to levels like this and beyond?
Also, Ryan, just to what Ryan just mentioned, OKEX did re-enable after a long suspension period, folks, the withdrawal of crypto from the exchange. So that's what he's referring to.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a really good question, Ryan. And I can't really say I'm certain whether I can, yes or no answer. Typically, when people move crypto away from the exchanges, it's kind of an indication that they're not going to sell, at least in my opinion, and what we've seen kind of historically. When we see Bitcoin get moved to exchanges, that typically is an indication that people are going to sell and liquidate those holdings. So yeah, I don't know is the honest answer.
And one more thing that happened yesterday. Sorry, Alex.
No, go ahead.
Coinbase went down again yesterday. I mean, what impact do you think that's having on people's confidence in crypto markets? Do you think that might cause some to leave, or a mass exodus of sorts in the wake of that and this downward movement?
Ryan, let's talk about this for a second, guys. Hold on. Okay. I mean, this is almost becoming a parody of sorts.
Daily, almost daily.
I mean, you go on marketrebellion.com, I'm sure has it. We have it over on tradethechain.com. We have retail users that are like, wow, I'm stuck. Where can I go? This is now turning into a joke. I frankly don't understand it. I mean, it is whatever is going on at Coinbase is not working out, and they need to figure it out. And they have one of the largest piggy banks in all of crypto. CJ, with your guys, with your users, what are you guys getting the same angry reactions as well? Because we're stuck in America. We're pigeonholed to very few exchanges.
Yeah, obviously it's very frustrating for the customers who use Coinbase, but the majority of our members use Voyager just from feedback and what they've said to us, and Voyager hasn't gone down. Nope. Fortunately.
That's what makes that model so successful, right? It's a multi-counterparty brokerage firm.
Yeah, I mean, Coinbase, with all the investment that has gone into that company, the potential of them even going for an IPO, it's like, guys, fix your bandwidth or matching engine or whatever it is, because we need, they are leaders in the industry, whether they like it or not. All the capital has really gone into like that Silicon Valley mantra of Coinbase. And in order for people to have confidence in the space, they need to stay up. Now, I understand that brokerages do go down from time to time. But Alex, as you were saying, this is becoming sort of a parody now that it's happened so often with the high levels of volume. And when you come into the space, most people are pointed towards Coinbase. That's just kind of the reality because it's been one of the most popular exchanges. Sure. I know Coinbase was the first exchange I used personally. And, when it goes down, it kind of extrapolates that whole like scam around the cryptocurrency industry. And when we talk about those 20% pullbacks and being normal in crypto markets, we don't typically see that in traditional markets. It's more of a steady upward grind when it comes to index funds, and there's not as much volatility. So all of those aspects together, and then having Coinbase go down, it's not a good look for the industry collectively.
I mean, 3 years ago, sorry, Alex.
Go ahead.
I was going to say, I mean, 3 years ago during ICO Mania, before the pipes were really built out, I mean, sure, Coinbase goes down. I didn't really think anything of it. I just kept jamming the sell button near the high, trying to get all my Bitcoin out, right? I'm like, I'm done. I made my money. But now
Refresh.
we have hedge funds, we have regulated entities, we have brokers that don't go down. I mean, I don't use Coinbase anymore because it goes down. I use Voyager. And I'd be infuriated and demoralized if every time I tried to buy or sell, or not every time, but with regularity, my broker's going down. I mean, to Alex's point, traditional brokers do go down. When I was at UBS, I think their system went down once. I was there for 4 years. Once in 4 years is excusable. It's not the best scenario, but it's excusable. I just, how are they trying to build a prime broker and be taken seriously if they can't even get their retail pipes in order?
It's not. It's not. I mean, we're not even seeing on the institutional side anybody really using Coinbase at all. Less than 1% of our crypto hedge fund clients at this point, because it really is a joke, and not for nothing. But if you're going through a volatile market and you're trying to do some sort of cash and carry or arbitrage strategy, you're going to lose out big if this happens. And I just want to point to a really funny tweet from 18 hours ago from our buddy Digital Asset News, who posts a picture of the error on Coinbase on his account. and he tweets out, "Now they're just doing it on purpose. Nobody can fail this hard this many times, if not on purpose. It must suck to suck." And Rob, Digital Asset News, that was probably one of your best tweets ever. And it's absolutely true. You can't rely on them at this point for much of anything. And I really hope they get it fixed, because, Coinbase is an integral part of the crypto infrastructure in the US particularly. I live in New York. I have to use it for on and off ramps with fiat. I don't have the luxury of Voyager or some others because of the regulations. But okay, so let's go back to Bitcoin for a second, CJ. What are we looking for? What are some probable short-term outcomes with Bitcoin, or is everybody just going to sit scared for the weekend?
Yeah, where do we go from here, basically?
Rub the crystal ball, CJ.
Yeah, I mean, I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you my approach, or how I approach the markets. And, I don't really want to buy weakness like this. I would rather us find support on one of these Fibonacci levels, whether it be 15,700 or 13,600. Personally, I don't know if we're going all the way down to 13K, which is why I'll probably be a buyer at 15.7 as well as 13.6. But we'll have to see. Just a couple days like what we had in this recent sell-off does not negate the overall trend or the bull market. So traditionally and historically, if one would have bought dips during Bitcoin bull markets, they would have done very well. So these are the levels that I'm looking at, and these are kind of the times in Bitcoin where you just got to be patient.
Dollar cost average.
You're not seeing a lot of volume, especially just with the holidays in the equity markets as well. So.
A good point. Listen, let's move over to Ethereum. Ethereum was a 600 plus darling just days ago. We have seen the bottom fall out of Ethereum. And not only that, but it's been systemic to a lot of DeFi coins as well. You look at, coins like Link and stuff like that, which are down around the $12 range and whatnot. This has been really hard hitting on them.
Yeah. And one thing I want to pull up before we talk about Ethereum, because you mentioned the correlation with so many other assets. Here we go. So these are the correlations. If you see all the way on the left side here, these are some of the most popular DeFi assets as well as altcoins in the space, highlighting their correlation with Ethereum. And so Link has been one of the most highly correlated assets with Ethereum at approximately 0.82. If you have a value of above 0.74, then it's kind of denominated that you have a very high correlation between assets. So there's another high one with ADA and some of these others here. But getting to like ETH specifically, yeah, this is one hell of a whipsaw.
Do you think it was just overall lack of confidence in DeFi tokens or people profit taking from them that caused it to drop, or was this just another natural correction on
Pools are emptying
underneath of a
out
broader
too.
trend?
Yeah, I mean, to Ryan's point, the pools are emptying out. There's a lot of people taking profit out of DeFi right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, it wouldn't have been a bad time to take profit because we were heavily overbought, at least when it comes to Bitcoin's case. But I mean, we talk about DeFi and we always relate it with risk. And this is what we're seeing with the risk. They're very high beta names. And that means that, of course, they're going to be a great friend in a bull market because they might even outperform Bitcoin. We've definitely seen that in some of the altcoins and DeFi assets last week when we were still bullish. But that's a double-edged sword because now in our bearish environment, those assets have less liquidity. And you're right, Ryan, they do have less confidence. And as a result, we see them sell off much, much harder. So as I said before, great friend in a bull market, in a bearish sell-off, pretty bad enemy.
Where do you think we go from here?
You know, I expect us to find support, especially when Bitcoin does. I expect these assets to continue to move in tandem. But that being said, we have some resistance levels, or excuse me, some support levels down here that we're really going to have to retest and see. You know, like I drew the Fibonacci for Bitcoin because we were in levels that we hadn't really seen before. You know, we have been testing some of these levels and experimenting in this price action in the terms of like the high 700s, low 500s. So I expect us to find support anywhere within that price gap. Now, that is a $30 price gap and is pretty large. So similar to the sense with Bitcoin, it's like, just got to be patient, wait for consolidation and make a move. But that hasn't presented itself yet, in my
opinion. You see that long wick down, which went down to some pretty good levels there. All right, let's move on to the hot list. Let's put some good news at least into this episode. Let's hit up Stellar, ticker's XLM. Let's see what's going on with the Ripple competitor on the charts here.
Yeah, wow. What a week of just bullish price action. But then you see this perfect top. Like when you see this doji candle coming after the 9, man, that is such a nice warning signal. And it turned out like what I had listed before. Let me just show you guys this.
Oh, look at Ethereum. Look at the doji on Ethereum and basically telling you to get out.
Yeah, no, all of these had a very clear warning signal when it comes to sequential in the 9s. We were talking about how they might not necessarily be bearish because we're in just such an overwhelming bull trend. But the moment you have that red 1 candle, or the moment I see that red 1 candle following the 9, that's a huge warning signal to get out because we're probably going to see further bearish price action. And that's what we've seen on literally like all of the large altcoins. But yeah, let's go to XLM, like you said, and let's try to find where these support levels are going to be.
I mean, XLM looks like it kind of supported itself there at the end, unlike some of the other coins. So that was an interesting movement.
Yeah, let's just get a fib retracement in there.
Does look like it has support.
Yeah,
sure.
So it is hitting the 2-3 level. We'll have to see though. You know, there's this whole 9 candle, it's just a massive bullish engulfing candle. Price really has no opportunity to form support when you have such bullish parabolic action. So we'll have to see if the market keeps going and Bitcoin finds another leg down to maybe 15.8 or possibly even as low as 13. The altcoins are likely going to follow, and especially the ones that saw massive parabolic price action earlier this week are likely going to give back a lot of those profits just due to the sheer volatility in the market.
It's
We've
crazy.
got our levels highlighted. You know, we just got to be patient.
Another one of those is on the hot list, right, Alex? What was it? XRP?
Yeah, we got XRP on the hot list too. This might be maybe a sector thing. I mean, it looks like it as well found a little stepping stone to just perch itself on the way down.
Yeah, so both of these assets are very similar. Not only are they forks of one another, but they are acting very similar in price action. And we're finding a little tentative support at the 0.38 level. We'll have to see. It's going to be interesting, what happens fundamentally after the airdrop. We've had a lot of questions in our community regarding the new XRP airdrop and how that's been kind of a catalyst for.
Explain that to the folks, CJ, because a lot of people aren't familiar with what's going on with that.
Yeah, let me pull up a nice article about it because a
lot of people have been asking about it in our Trade the Chain community as well, and they're discussing it among themselves. I think having an educated eye on it could help.
Yeah, so what we've seen in the past week is about $1 billion worth of XRP has been moved to exchanges. That's the most we've ever seen throughout the past year when XRP's just had this stagnant price action. The reason why that is because in order to claim the Spark tokens, you need to have XRP on a supporting exchange. Some of the exchanges that are supporting this Spark airdrop are Binance. And essentially what Spark wants to do is, integrate Ethereum's virtual machine into a type of smart contract development, because what the XRP kind of wants to do with this is have some way to have smart contract decentralized applications. Whether they can compete with Ethereum, I don't have that much confidence in, but it was enough for the market to seriously pop and have really bullish price action. Now, I think this is going to be more of a buy the rumor, sell the news type of event, but interesting nonetheless.
All right. I mean, it doesn't happen often with XRP, so at least I know the XRP army is happy and wishing them the best in this price action. On to our last on the hot list, which is Verge, ticker's XVG. We have not discussed this on the show in the past, so let's see what's going on with Verge here.
Yeah, that wick was really intense.
Wow. A lot of volatility going here, though. Do
you think that's just liquidity gaps? I mean, it has to just be liquidity gaps because of the light trading during the holiday weekend here in the States. That has to be contributing to it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Another good example that I'll just briefly go to is VGX. I'll come right back to Verge, I promise. But yeah, same thing. Look at these liquidity issues. This is right as Voyager announced their desktop beta platform is going to come out soon. Immediately, all the way to 20 cents, rejected at 20 cents. Maybe somebody had a massive sell order in there, just sitting. But that is another good example of kind of what we're seeing in the market with these liquidity gaps, like you mentioned, Ryan. So kind of a similar thing here with Verge, just a very, very staunch rejection. Now, what I like to look for as well, when not only just using the Fibonacci level, but another thing that really provides great support and resistance when we're in areas that are kind of in uncharted territory is the sequential setup trend lines. So you can see by this red dotted line and this green dotted line, these serve as very strong support levels because they come as a result of previous nines. Like you can see here is the green 9 that creates support. And then we have the exact same thing coming down on the red 9. So those levels are typically very good support. And as you can see, this green 6 candle bounced, it wicked right exactly off the TD support level very accurately. So going to continue watching this 0.618 fib level, as well as this TD setup level for support. But it looks like it's got relatively strong support because it's fallen so far, so fast right now. So that's what we're seeing with Verge.
I mean, back to Voyager for a second. We went out of our way to poke fun at it last week, given it's kind of been dragged down for a bit. But it did have a nice recovery, earlier in the week before it went down. Do you think that recovery is long-term sustainable as well, or do you think we're headed for another bit of a downward spiral here?
Well, if I was to talk from just an opinion-based perspective, I think the low is in. If I go to the sequential indicator on, I gotta X out of these images. If I go to VGX on the sequential, you can see we had a very nice indication of a bottom here when we hit a red 9 in late November, or like earlier, a couple weeks ago. I think this is potentially the low. Now, what is going to completely change my mind is whether or not the bulls have the strength to be able to break above this resistance level. We were above it briefly, very briefly.
Yes.
I mean, this was like only 5 minutes, maybe even 3 minutes. I was watching this live, but we got to get above this TD resistance level that is remaining from the previous 9. If we can do that and consolidate, I think we're very bullish in the overall trend.
Don't forget, we also got a migration going on with VGX, the end of this year. So, I mean, the things could change from a price action point of view. But fundamentally, if you had to do it from a fundamental standpoint, I think the desktop rollout is big. I think things are headed in a positive direction. I'm curious to see what this migration does.
Yes. I think the demo, or what they first released for the desktop, is pretty interesting. Like, to me, it looks more like an E-Trade platform, or like what Steve used to make, with Lightspeed back in the day in the late and early 2000s. Doesn't really remind me of a crypto exchange, but looks pretty sweet nonetheless. I can't trade on it.
Yeah, it's much more intuitive than some of the other interfaces you see out there. I mean, Market Rebellion, of course, not included. You guys have the sexiest interface in the business.
Oh, we appreciate that.
All right, let's go to the not list now. Making waves is Ocean. You like that? I put that in. What do we got going on with Ocean here?
Yeah, so we were looking at Ocean from a pretty bullish perspective throughout the past few weeks, because we were in this nice ascending triangle pattern. But, as soon as you don't find support, or as soon as the trend doesn't find support here, I don't want to be holding this once we break the ascending triangle. I don't even want to hold this when we are in the ascending triangle. When I am looking to buy a breakout in this type of formation, I want to wait till we get confirmation and break above this previous resistance level of around 58 cents. That was the trade setup I had previously on this one, but obviously it didn't work. And we've fallen below that setup trend line. Now, if we take a look at sequential on Ocean, let's see what we got. It probably should be a neutral. Okay, yeah, pretty neutral formation. Another signal that I look to go short is when we're in a bearish trend and we get a very bearish 2 candle closing below the previous red 1. So yeah, if I was in a short, I wouldn't sell that. I'd still be in it. Wouldn't enter one, but that's what we're seeing with Ocean. Any thoughts, guys?
No, I mean, there was a lot of positive momentum with Ocean just, a couple of weeks ago, going into last week. So, from my expectations, it was going to be due to follow the correctness of the market. I don't think there's anything, any outliers here. The next two are probably a little more on the mind of what was going on. The first one being Litecoin, ticker's LTC. I mean, Litecoin just skyrocketed. I think people were like, wow, I really, I look at Litecoin for the longest time as a $30 asset. This thing just blew up to, there we go, we're, in the 80s, high 80s. Even whipped up to 92, 93. But this thing took its ride. I think a lot of people had been holding on to it. and kind of living with that $35-$40 range for a long time, took a lot of profits on it. But I just didn't see Litecoin being a $90+ dollar asset.
I mean, there was no sense behind this run up either, was there? I mean, was there any real known catalyst, or was it just what could it possibly have been besides people pumping it just to sell it?
Speculation, maybe. That's my theory.
Yeah, I mean, assets trend regardless of whether they have intrinsic or fundamental value. We've seen that throughout the commodity markets. And that's pretty much all we were seeing with Litecoin. I mean, we were talking earlier about how it has that sentiment around it that it's the silver to Bitcoin's gold. So it would kind of make sense that it would trade somewhat like a commodity and trend like this. But that, of course, doesn't mean it's not prone to sell-offs in the Bitcoin and Ethereum ecosystem. So, that's what we saw after it reached these highly, highly overbought levels.
Go on, Max.
No, when was the last time it was even at these levels? It's been since the parabolic run of 17. Yeah, I mean, look, it's where are we? That was it rarely visits this type of run up.
To that point, a friend of mine who, as soon as it hit 80, he sold everything. Like he just took his profits and ran. He wanted nothing to do with it anymore. Like he was out.
I think I would have too, with this particular asset. I actually never hold LTC in any of my portfolio allocations. CJ, do you guys hold LTC at all in your allocations over Market Rebellion?
Well, I cannot speak to the portfolio unless you want to come and join our community. But me personally, I only speculate on Litecoin. Doesn't mean it won't do well over the course of the bull market. I think it'll rise with Bitcoin if the bull market continues. Like we talked about a little bit earlier, Litecoin being the silver to Bitcoin's gold. We'll see if that psychological kind of sentiment actually comes to fruition in a bull market. But I have never held it in a portfolio position. But it doesn't mean I don't believe it won't go up over the course of a bull market. I just think there are probably other better opportunities.
That was diplomatic. I like that answer. I'm going to go with CJ's answer. All right, let's go on to the last one on the not list, Uni. Uni has seen a little bit of a deflation here. I think it has to do with a lot of liquidity leaving. I'm not quite sure, but CJ, what are the charts telling us?
Man, this is a perfect technical formation. Just a really nice example of the 9 topping, and then we just had this consolidation and ultimately couldn't push higher and sold off. And this goes along with what we were talking about earlier with some other DeFi assets. It's just these things do really, really well in a risk-on environment historically. But when everything sells off, the assets that have gone up parabolically, aside from Bitcoin, usually just get decimated. And that's what we saw with this one. I mean, Uniswap is still a very experimental assets, and not a lot of people are comfortable going on Uniswap, but there have been opportunities for immense gain in that kind of DeFi ecosystem.
What are your thoughts, Ryan? I know you like Uni when it's on the up.
Don't we all? Everyone likes a winner. I mean, I think it goes back to what I was saying earlier. It's just people potentially losing confidence in them or selling off just to lock in some profits. And, you see similar price action in ETH. It's kind of like a DeFi ETF in a way. It goes up when all these DeFi projects go up, and then it goes down when they go down. And ultimately, it's just, I guess, people selling off along in tandem with Bitcoin and just making money after they've been holding bags for a while, if nothing else.
What about CJ? What about good old Sush? Is this Uni? I always equate Uni to Sush when it comes to this price movements. Is it following the same path?
Well, give me a minute. I do not have sushi data. Let me pull it up real quick.
You always have to order off the menu when getting the pricing for sushi. It's not it's not mainstream just yet. for some of these charts.
Let me just turn this down a little bit.
Well, to USDT, it's a little bit different there. Okay.
Has a bit more support.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're actually seeing somewhat of a bounce. Let's see what our Fibonacci support levels are at. Wow, you can see we perfectly wicked off the 0.618. That's pretty interesting.
What does that mean long term? That we have, are we headed in another upward trajectory, do you think?
Well, you know, when we follow these nines in the midst of an uptrend, typically after we get a correction, we'll see a 1 to 4 candle correction of the opposite color. And so that's pretty much what we're seeing here. You know, this would have been a 9, but since it corrected and closed below the 4 candles prior, then it price flips to a red 1, and you know that bearish momentum ensued. Now that we've kind of finished the 1 to 4 candle red correction, you can see that we're having a nice little bounce, and it makes me very confident that we bounced off the critical Fibonacci level and are actually having some nice bullish price action. So we'll have to see whether or not we price flip back into green territory. That's what I'm looking for, and you know it looks like we're coming around. You know, it's looking not bad. We'll see what happens with these DeFi assets though, because this is a very, you know, they get hammered when Bitcoin sells off. They are risk on.
Yeah, the DeFi, you know, it almost seems like a levered ETF to me, one way or the other. You know, it's accelerated up or it's accelerated down. It's a tricky game to play. Ryan, let's just go right into the news now. We got, you know, this Janet Yellen announcement from the Biden administration. Take us through this and what this means for crypto, or could mean for crypto over the course of the next 4 years.
Sure. So Janet Yellen, you know, she's widely respected among financial circles for a number of reasons. But her views on Bitcoin, I think, you know, they're not positive. I mean, as recently as 2 years ago, she said, "I'm not a fan," and she just doesn't seem to be too positive on cryptocurrency in general. That said, she's been rather adamant about saying financial regulators should not stifle innovation. And she's talked at length about how important blockchain technology could be. So, you know, there could be a scenario where regulators may seek to regulate a lot of cryptocurrencies, but still encourage positive movement in the blockchain space. What impact that has on Bitcoin, I think, you know, given her conflicting statements between the underlying technology and crypto in general, I mean, it kind of puts us just back in that gray area. We started seeing clarity. It started looking like we were moving towards having more clear oversight, more clear rulemaking, and now all of a sudden we're just back in the fog. It feels like, and I can't imagine that this has a positive impact, at least for the next year, until she's in place and starts, you know, publicly discussing her policies and setting them in motion. What do you guys think?
Well, I mean, you know, she seems to be flip-flopping on two sides of this coin, right? So on one, she's trying to encourage innovation in the financial markets, and at the same time, you know, not really a believer in the cryptocurrency market. So, you know, I think she's talking out, you know, talking out both sides. I think a big part of this is going to be the old guard, and she's going to have the ear of people, whether it's Biden or other regulatory bodies and stuff like this. I could see how this could stifle forward momentum in positive regulation or you know, any sort of architecture around crypto for the next 4 years. I hope not. I hope they surround themselves with a lot of advisors and young folks in this industry who tell them otherwise.
Yeah, and the news of this coming out has been really good for the equity market. I mean, it's just been trucking. And I think that the reason why is because it kind of implies that we're going to get a second stimulus passed, you know, once Donald Trump leaves office. But Speaking to your point about regulation, just one little bit of news that I want to also bring to this conversation is, I don't know if you guys saw this, but Coinbase CEO Brian Armstrong is tweeting that he hears rumors that the US Secretary and Secretary Mnuchin are planning to rush out some new regulation regarding self-hosted crypto wallets before the end of Trump's term. And he's concerned that this would have unintended side effects and wanted to share this concern. So essentially, he goes through this entire tweet storm about how the US and specifically with the Federal Reserve might regulate self-hosted crypto wallets. And these wallets that I'm talking about are like the offline wallets, like the ledgers, the Trezors. Wherever you put your Bitcoin that isn't on an exchange goes into one of these self-hosted wallets. And what he's concerned about is that these self-hosted wallets will have to be identified with AML and KYC. And so, like, the reason why this is very problematic if this type of regulation actually comes out is because when you send something to Uniswap or to a decentralized protocol, that there's no identity that is affiliated with that. And essentially what he closes with is that there were in the early days of the internet, there were individuals who wanted to regulate the internet, but thank God we didn't. And, we've had the flourishing tech companies in Palo Alto and in Silicon Valley that have made the US a powerhouse economically in the 21st century. I think if we stifle innovation and go down this, it will leave a very bad legacy if we regulate these self-hosted wallets, and it will stifle innovation and make China and other nations more dominant in the US when it comes to blockchain technology.
This stands in stark contrast to what Yellen said back in February of 2014. I mean, she explicitly said the Fed doesn't have authority to supervise or regulate Bitcoin in any way.
I'm calling BS on this. I really am. And quite honestly, guys, this is the only news that it came out on was him tweeting about it. We're talking about the equivalent of the Fed saying they're going to regulate the wallet you carry in your back pocket. I don't know what club or restaurant he overheard any officials say talking about this.
He was with Jacob Wall in a hipster coffee
full
shop.
BS on this, and I hope people ignore it. I really do, because that had to be one of the lousiest rants of some sort of scary paranoia out there in the public forum. Really, it makes no freaking sense. Sorry.
I mean, it's curious. It came out right as Coinbase went down as well, almost
Stop
like a distraction
tactic. The failure.
But even if that were to occur, like, what's stopping me from putting on a VPN, going off the dark web, buying a ledger or a Trezor from an undocumented
CJ, there is no way.
Then,
there's no way they can regulate a self-custody wallet, and not only that, I'm pretty sure that it'll fall under unconstitutional within the law, just as if you were custodying your own fiat currencies. I'm sorry, this is the most. I don't mean to go on a rant on this.
I got you going.
Tell us how you really feel.
Sounding thing I have literally heard, and it's improperly scaring people in crypto. And to Ryan's point, maybe it was to cover up the fact that their exchange keeps going down.
Yeah, he's circling the drain on that one.
I'm going to be quiet. I'll let everybody else speak.
I just, maybe he should focus on his exchange rather than other people's wallets at the end of the day.
Yeah.
I mean, get your own house in order. I mean, your exchange is going down. What's that? Twice in a week? I mean, come on.
I'm curious on when CJ gets a letter from the feds saying that he can no longer have his Ledger X or whatever it may be with his Bitcoin on it. What his reaction's going to be?
Uniswap works. I mean, see ya.
Yeah, but isn't
all it's going to do is push people to the decentralized ecosystem, which will just become international and, like Ryan said, centered in Uniswap. So
yeah, well, and listen, the rise of DEX over the last 6 months in mainstream crypto trading, even with crypto funds, this would just propel it. But I just don't see it happening. But that's just my my 2.5 Satoshis. All right, folks. Anything else to add, or are we good for this Friday? And we just got to play this through the weekend and see what lays in store next, I suppose.
That 15.5 Bitcoin price prediction I've been making since July, it's not looking so bad right now. Well, it is looking bad, but it's looking a little more reasonable.
It's the closest of the other three of us.
I think so.
Well done.
I know Monty's not joining us this week, but I would definitely have loved to heard what Mr. Short's positions would have been and how he's feeling, but we'll get those next week. Guys, thank you so much. Another crazy week in crypto, and we'll see what happens next. So have a great weekend, everybody.
Have a good holiday weekend, everyone.
Happy Thanksgiving.